Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with Simco Training. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I would start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Hi, welcome to another episode of Selling in the Motor Trade. Today, it's all about used cars. We all know what's happened with used cars in the motor trade over the last couple of years, the supply issues out there. And I'm joined again with Ian Parker. And I'm really excited to talk to Ian about what are some of his ideas to help us navigate the minefield, which is used cars going forward. Ian, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me back. And I'm happy to talk about this because it's a real passion of mine.
Well, I got to tell you, used cars is a concern, I think, at the moment. And I want to get your views what's happening. We know that used car prices went up and up and up for, 2 years in a row? And I've never seen anything like this in the motor trade in my life. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, it's just crazy when you think that people are buying cars for $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 and then bringing them in, trading them in and getting $33,000, $35,000 for them. And it's just crazy. But that bubble is about to burst, and the consumer won't be as badly affected, but the dealers that have got, 30, 40, 50, 60 or 100 used cars at old money have got to make some decisions. How do we get through them?
Well, that's what I want to get your views on this. Back in 2008, the world went to shit, okay? And I remember there was a Land Rover business, one of our clients, that they had Land Rover Discoveries and Range Rover Sports. They were, $5,000 a month they were pilling in the book prices, okay? Is that going to happen again? What are your views there? Are they going to come off? Are they going to tank again? Or will they come down gradually, used car prices?
Oh, look, I think that they certainly won't tank. I can't see them going from, 30 grand to 15 grand overnight. I can't see that. But I think that the first hit will be a little bit sharp, right? So they might go from, 30 grand to, 22 or 3 grand or whatever the case may be. And the problem is that we know as a dealer that if it's 30 grand and gone back to 22 grand, chances are that's probably below cost. Right, and it may on some, may not be. So you've got to be prepared for it. Now, the smart dealers that we work with over the last few years during COVID, we spoke to them about provisioning because they were making really good money out of used cars, like 3, 4, 5, 6,000, whatever the case may be. And we spoke to them about putting some money aside for every used car you sell for this day. And if we heard about the Jim Rohn and the ant story, we know that you've got to prepare for winter because winter comes every year.
So Jim Rohn and the ant story, I haven't heard that. You need to tell me that.
Okay, yeah. So Jim Rohn talks about the ants. The ants, and I'm happy to share that with your clients. I've actually got the article. But Jim Rohn talks about that we have summer, we have autumn, we have spring, but the ants are always putting stuff away for winter. And I talk to our dealers about you've got to put stuff away for winter. Because in summer, when things are great and we think, well, the world's never going to end and everything's fantastic, that's the time you've got to take some of that money and put it away for winter. Because when winter comes, you've got to still survive and pay the bills.
Yep.
Right. So, what we talk about, so the ones that didn't provision for that, so then all of a sudden they say, okay, well, I've got problems. I've got all these used cars that are wrong. If they don't deal with them, what happens is, as you know, salespeople start walking around them. Because there's no money in them. If we reduce them, there's no money in them. So one of the things we spoke about, I ran a video on this, was that let's say, for example, that the car owes you, and I'll use $20,000 as an example. Let's say that's what it owes you, okay?
Yep.
But today's market, that car, if you ring around the wholesalers tell you that car is worth $15,000. Okay? So we know, so then what happens is that the used car manager might go, okay, well, I'm $5,000 wrong. But no, you're not. Because if you wholesale that car to a wholesaler, the chances are that wholesaler would put $1,000 or $1,500 profit on it and I'll sell it to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then all of a sudden, that means that car is worth 16,500. Okay. Because you've got to put the wholesaler's margin on it that he would make out of it. Mm-hmm. Now you've got to ask yourself, if I bought a car of a wholesaler for 16,500, am I going to put it through my workshop for reconditioning? And you know you are. You put every car through, and let's say you spend an average of 500 a car through the workshop. Okay. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you can say, okay, that car now owes me 17 grand. All right. That's on today's market. So my normal margin that I put on that car would be 21,990 because I've marked up 5 grand, but I want to clear it because it's old stock and I've got to turn it over. So if I put it out at 19,990, that means I'm going to break even. But I've got the chance of getting another trade off that car that I can probably make 3 or 4 grand out of. Yep. I've got the opportunity, and what I would do, I recommend you put an extended warranty on it. Like over here, we've got things like Harrier. That means they come back to your workshop and get it serviced. Okay, so you can pick up 4 years of servicing at a fixed price servicing, right? You also might pick up the finance on that car. Let's say you might pick up $1,000 or $1,500 commission out of the finance. So you could turn around that car that was going to be a net loss or a break even, and you get a trade out you can make a profit out of, and you can also pick up out of the finance. But the other thing is, by you adding those figures on and putting it out like that, if one of your salespeople go and grab the sheet and try to work out a deal on, or the new car manager, because you're not there, the figure that you've got it at 19,990, they think, well, we've got to sell it for that because that's basically what it owes and there's nothing in it and we're going to lose money, even though you've turned it around that you can wear that loss.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the thing that I say to our people is that the flea in the jar, if that's the lid of the jar, the flea only jumps to the top of the lid. If you lift the lid a bit higher, the flea will jump a bit higher.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the thing. So with that, at the moment, when you've got your used cars, you've got to own up to them early. My saying I have is the first profit's your best profit, and your first loss is your best loss.
Yep. Yep.
So don't fall in love with them. And if you don't have something in place, then all that'll happen is people keep walking around them. In another 90 days, they're still going to be there.
So let's talk about the vehicle park out there. So new car sales have dropped off. Okay, because they couldn't get semiconductors, wiring looms, blah, blah, blah. We know that. So consequently, there's less used cars in the market. Okay, so retailers to retail used cars, we're going to have to sell used cars. Are we going to sell older cars, which we are at the moment? Our reconditioning goes through the roof. How is that going to play out in the next couple of years there? Because there are less used cars to go around. Has to be.
Yeah. So the thing with that is, that we say to our clients, and one of the things we came up with was that, and I know that everything's done on an app today. When you value used cars, it's all done on an app. I understand all that, right? Mm-hmm. But we actually designed a little valuation form with a perforated bit on the bottom, which was like a cheque, right? And when we were valuing the car, and we'd value the car, and we just what we teach our people: you value the car, you write it all up there. And Simon will say, no, look, I think, Ian, that Mary, my neighbour, is going to buy that car for $20,000. We might have offered you, 16 grand or something, right? And so the average dealer will say, okay, well, you go and sell it to Mary. The salesperson's happy because he just sold the new car and everything moves on. My belief is you will pay your used car manager or your used car buyer or a wholesaler $300 or $500 to go out and buy cars for you at auctions. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. So why don't we incentivize our salespeople to trade used cars and to buy used cars at the door? So because if that new car salesperson was incentivized to trade cars, he wouldn't let Ian walk off to sell that car to his neighbour Mary. He would fight a bit harder. And if you gave him the tools to do that, he would be able to do it. So what we've come up with is a valuation form, and you fill it all out and you say, Simon, this valuation is valid for 2 weeks or 500 miles or kilometres, whatever occurs first. And on the bottom, you fill out the cheque, and you might make 16 grand on it. You give it all to Simon, you get him to sign the valuation form so that provided the car comes back in that condition, you'll honour that cheque of 16 grand. You rip it off, you give Simon the cheque. Then we give you a script for the next 14 days, and not ringing Simon every day, but when you ring Simon, what you say to Simon to see where he's up to about trying to get that car. We know that when Simon, when he's sitting in the dealership, he makes out that he's the boss, captain, coach, and sole director. We know when he gets home with that check and his wife says, "What's that?" We know who becomes the captain, coach, and the boss. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. And the check gets put on the fridge, and the wife looks at it every day and thinks, "I've got 16 grand sitting here on the fridge, and I've got a piece of metal in the yard." Okay. So and then with you ringing to find out. So we don't talk about ringing to say, "Simon, I'm ready to buy that car." The script is along the lines, "Hey, Simon, it's Ian here. Have I got you at a good time? I just thought I'd give you a quick call. Has Mary gone ahead and bought your Isuzu D-Max?" "Oh, no, she's still trying to get finance." "Yeah, that's all perfectly fine, Simon. How about I give you a ring in a couple of days? Would that work best for you to see where things are up to?"
Yeah. Listen, I got to say, getting the supplier cars, going to the auctions now, in the UK market, it's just not an option. Anything going through auctions is sold through the Cinches of the world, the Kazoos of the world. Used car buyers, I've got to go and do what we used to do years ago, going through the auto traders, getting those private people selling the car and actually being experts of buying cars. And also the other thing that I just love, such a simple idea. If we need salespeople to prospect on new car customers, okay, why aren't we just saying, listen, from the database, every car you can buy in the database that we want, okay, which is from the 2 to 4 years old, the criteria, the D-Max that you know that you can sell in a heartbeat. Hey, Mr. New Car Salesperson, I'm going to pay you X amount on every car you can buy from there. Because funny enough, you know what? They'll end up, if we buy that used car from the database, chances are they want to buy a new car anyway. I think we have to get really, really good at that. The supply of used cars, it's still going to be hard work for the next couple of years. It has to be, because the number of new cars sold was reduced.
100%. And the way to do it, as you said, is, go into car sales, look for people selling their cars privately. Cars are for sale on the side of the road. If they're those late model cars, go and have a look at them. Ring the owner up. Find out, what are you replacing that with? Find out about that car. Can you buy that car? It's all about, and we did a mini series on how to buy and trade used cars profitably, right? And to do that is the reverse of selling a new car. If you build trust and rapport with the client, and you make it easy for them to sell the car to you, and do all those things right, the chances are you'll buy the car.
Yeah, you have to do that. The other thing that I learned from a great sales trainer, a guy called Andy, many, many years ago, Andy Williams, and he just turned around and I was in the room where he turned around and said to the salesperson, "Hey, has anyone here bought a car privately themselves?" And this lad said, yeah, I have. He said, "Oh, great. Can I ask you a few questions?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "When you went and have a look at the car privately, did you go by yourself or did you go with anyone else?" He said, "I took my dad with me." "Why'd you take your dad?" "Oh, because he knows cars and he's better than I am." "Okay." He said, "Did you drive the car?" He said, yeah, I did. Okay. "Did you point out some of the things that were wrong on the car, okay, to maybe chisel the price down a bit?" I said, "Yeah, of course I did." "Did you pay the full price or did you chisel them down in price?" No, I chiseled them down." "How long were you there?" I thought, where's Eddie going with all of this? "How long were you there?" He said, "I don't know, probably half an hour." "Okay. And you got the price down?" Yeah. "Okay." He done all this. He said, "Great. Why don't you do that on a customer's trade-in when they come in?" He said, "Well, it's not my fucking money, isn't it?" Okay. And his DP was there. I couldn't believe he actually said it out in front of the dealer's principal, but there's some truth there. Actually, if it was your own money, wouldn't you look at it so much more carefully? But sometimes when it's the dealer's money, the DP's money, it's like, well, let's just go and quickly value it. But actually spending the time with it, that's the point Andy was making there. That was
but if they're incentivized to buy those cars, because it's about what's in it for me as a salesperson that sells new cars, right? He gets paid for every new car that's sold. So whether he trades a car or not, if he's not incentivized to trade the car in, he won't trade the car. To him, if I get the trade, it's good. If I don't care, because I'm not selling it. I don't sell used cars. I don't get paid to trade it, so why do I care? But if you can incentivize them, and another thing in another dealership we spoke about, we'd say to them, and I'll use some numbers. That let's say your salespeople sell 10 cars a month, right? 10 new cars a month. And I said to them, go back over how many cars they traded on average over the last 6 months. Now, I said, if they average traded was 5 cars a month, if that's what their average was, then you might say to them, Simon, from 0 to 5, I'm going to pay you a $100 or a $20 a car bonus, which equals $100, right? But you trade the 6th car, and that 6th car is going to be worth $200. You trade the 7th car, and it'll be worth $250, or whatever the case may be, right? So then all of a sudden, he's fighting to get that, because if he trades 8 cars a month, that might be worth another, $1,000 in commission to him.
Yep.
And what we put together for our salespeople was an A4 document that they white label to their dealership, and it's called The Pitfalls of Selling Your Car Privately. And they give it to the customer. And when Mr. Customer says, "Oh no, we're going to sell our car privately," we go, "Yeah, that's fine, Simon. I fully appreciate that, because that's your decision. But if you thought about these reasons about why, the dangers of selling your car privately, let me just show them to you." And all of a sudden, the customer looks at that and goes, "I don't want someone coming around to my place at any hours of the day or the night. I don't want people knowing where I live if there's a problem with my car after they've taken delivery of it. I don't need them coming around to see my wife because I travel 5 days a week."
Yep. And you know what? We've got to get so much use better at that side, because it's so easy at the moment. Say, I'm selling the car privately. No worries, next. No worries, next. But that's the stock that we need at the moment. 100%. We absolutely need that stock. Okay. Listen, I want to get your views on a 90-day policy, a 60-day policy, 45-day policy. Again, something that as a dealer world, we haven't had to worry about for a while. Okay. Because you couldn't get stock anyway, no one's really had to worry about a 90-day policy. But because the market's starting to soften, okay, what are your views on that overage policies?
Okay. So my thing is, from day one, you've got to look at that car and you've got to make the decision, is it retail or wholesale? Okay. So if you decide it's retail, then you've got to work that car through the system, and you've got to work it as a retail car. All right. So then it might need 3 weeks to go through reconditioning before it comes on the yard. So you can't run a 60-day or a 90-day policy on that car, because it's already had a month before it's even hit the yard. So that's not fair to that car. So you've got to work out, when does my 30, 60, 90-day policy start? Right. So my thing is, it should start when that car hits the yard, right? Now, for dealerships that have got multiple sites, so they might have, multiple sites in different locations, and they rotate their stock around. I was talking to one dealer group, and I said to him about, do you rotate your stock around? He said, "Oh, no. He said, the dealership that so-and-so doesn't want to hand them over to them because they're frightened they might miss a sale." I said, "But is it your stock or their stock?" "Well, it's my stock." I said, "Well, they don't have a say in that. You've got to say to them that car hits the yard, and I said, with your DMS, you can measure when the 90 days or the 60 days, or whatever the case may be. You've got to say to them, that car is still there in 60 days. It goes from point A to point B. And then point B get the opportunity to sell it, right?" And I said, because if the salespeople know they've only got, 60 days or whatever to sell that car, they'll work their backside out to sell that car in that time. If it's a plumb car, they know there's a good quid in it. So my thing is that if it gets to 90 days, then, I would look at, I'm not a fan of, wholesaling it out and clearing it out. If it was good at day one, it's good at day 90, but you've got to readjust the price. You might have to use that formula I spoke about before, if the market's dropped a bit or whatever. But you've got to look at that. And the other thing is that I talk about is frustrating. I know sometimes the dealership shouldn't have this problem at the moment, but pre-COVID, some dealerships had cash flow problems, right, for different times of the month, right?
Yeah. And
they talk about, we're going to wholesale some cars, and the first thing they do is go and wholesale the last 10 trades that come in, because they're all on the money, rather than go and look at some of the old stock, and they, we can't wholesale those. We're going to burn 30 grand, but you're about to wholesale those ones there you can make 100 out of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's I tell you what, a great run dealership for me, it's always the used car department. You get that 100%. Used car department running right, everything else comes off that side of it. That really is the key to it. And let's be honest, we don't have all of the manufacturers all over you all the time. Used car operations with, listen, can we talk about the agency sales model? This is coming there, okay? Yeah. And you know what? The used car operation is what's going to separate the good from the great in the agency model.
Yeah, 100%, because the customers are still going to come up with cars that they're driving, and they're going to want to, you know, their old car, they're going to want to have someone buy it. So you better off to be that person that buys it. And as you know, Simon, the best profit in a used car is not when you sell it, it's when you buy it or trade it.
Yeah. Yep. That's when it always begins there. I tell you what, it's a focus on used cars. I think this is what, as an industry, we need to get back into doing, getting our heads around it right now. Because, listen, I do remember the pain in 2008 and what happened there. And I don't think it's going to happen this time because of what we said. It was a different thing driving the 2008 recession over here to what's driving it here. And it's supply and demand, which is the issue at the moment. But we need to get good at buying used cars. You need to get out there looking at buying them the best way. And listen, how do people get a hold of your used car program? Do they go and look at theautoacademy.com.au?
Yeah, they look at they're better. It won't. There is some information on there about that, but the best thing is just send me an email, ian@ianparker.com.au. Just mention that you heard me talking about the used car program, and I can send them out the full information pack on it, what's all involved in it, and everything like that.
Perfect. Really do appreciate it. This is great to have you back on the podcast again. Thanks again for your time.
No worries, Simon. I appreciate it.
That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, simcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn. Thank you.